Hi, everybody. My name is Holly Myers. I am the Dean of Health Sciences here at Davidson-Davie Community College, and wanted to just take a quick second to talk to you guys about some of our initiatives toward creating a more equitable outcome in some of our selective admissions programs. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. If someone could put in the chat pod whether or not they could hear me, that would be awesome. Awesome. Hi, Hiro. All right, perfect. So if you guys can hear me, I'll go ahead and get started because I know our time is limited here. I just wanted to say that this is an initiative that we at Davidson-Davie kind of start looking at closely last year. And, today I'm focusing on kind of the health sciences program. Establish it that can be applicable to other programs or other programs that have lived processes. So I think it's all just about creating the opportunity and the space for admissions for a diverse population. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. That would be helpful, I'm sure. Awesome. Okay, perfect. I believe I've shared my screen. Perfect. All right. So first we'll get started with, again, Holly Myers. I'm the Dean here of Health Sciences at Davidson-Davie Community College. I've been at Davidson-Davie for 17 years now. Started off as faculty and have worked my way up. So I've been associated with our health sciences program since 2014. And since January, I've served as our Dean of Health Sciences here. There we go. All right, so let's just talk about kind of the framework of why we wanted to look at creating a holistic admission process. So as a public health, as an epidemiologist, I really focus on trying to use evidence-based practices and also ensuring that our practices align with national trends. And so in 2020, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention kind of revamped their essential public health services. And when kind of looking at this, I really saw a lot of overlap with, access to higher education, especially as it relates to healthcare. And so, the key thing here is for creating a platform to ensure that we have an effective system that enables equitable access to individuals into the care, especially as we talk about for the health aspect of it, and services. And not only to do that, I think this provides a very strong foundation for promoting not only the healthcare of all communities, but also access to the educational components so that we can build a diverse workforce. One of the key factors that kind of stood out to me associated with this platform and this framework is, ensuring that we have an effective system that enables equitable access. And this can be used specifically by addressing and one of the things we'll talk about today in removing barriers to the educational platform. But it also contributes, as we remove those barriers, what we're going to do is positively contribute to the development of a competent and diverse workforce. As healthcare providers, as educational entities of healthcare practitioners, right, we have a role to build and support the diverse and skilled public health workforce, right? And so we can provide that education and training that encompasses a broad spectrum of public health competencies, including the technical, the strategic, and the leadership skills. We also have a role in ensuring that the public health workforce is appropriate and it can meet the needs of the local communities. More importantly, we are tasked with building a culturally competent public health workforce, and that includes leadership skills that reflects the communities and the practices in those communities. And then another thing that's kind of stood out to me in this framework is that, we have that need to constantly improve and innovate public health functions through ongoing evaluation, research, and continuous quality improvement. And I think that's something that sometimes, we can lose focus on, especially as it comes to, getting prepared and starting each new semester and each new term, right? So one thing I've really tried to focus on in my role here at Davidson-Davie is using research and evidence-based practice to, bring in insight and other forms to help us make some data-informed decisions. So this kind of just serves as a really good, strong foundation for kind of why we need a change and why we need to look at our access to our healthcare programs. So let's talk about some of the challenges in our community. So what we see here is just it's kind of a map of North Carolina that shows what we consider health professional shortage areas. And so this is some data from the Health Resource and Services Administration. Actually pulled this last week. And so as we can see here, this kind of represents a geographic area or population group that has been designated by the Health Resources and Services Administration as having a shortage of healthcare professionals. And I'm sure this is probably very similar for many other professions outside of healthcare. But what they use is a scoring system, and basically the higher the score indicates the higher the need. And so as we can see here, we have a great shortage of healthcare professionals at all levels throughout North Carolina. We've got the majority of North Carolina, if not half, is designated as one of the highest levels, 18 and above. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that healthcare is one of the fastest growing professions in North Carolina, and it counts for 13 of the 30 highest growing professions between 2019 and 2029. So lots of demand for qualified healthcare professionals. That type of this type of information, as we all know, has led to an influx of students wanting to become healthcare practitioners in our community. And community colleges are definitely, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but community colleges are definitely key stakeholders in reducing that disparity that we see in that previous slide. Community colleges are founded on principles of social equity. We remove financial barriers, geographic barriers, academic barriers that may prohibit qualified students, especially in the underrepresented populations, from attending a four-year college and a university. One of the key facts of our community college system is that, we kind of strive off the philosophy that, we meet people where they are and get them to where they need to be, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons that we all, work within our community college system, is because we really strongly believe in that mission and providing those individuals with access to education. We are intended as an open door institution. And so a lot of times that means we see a more diverse student population than that would attend at a university or four-year college. Therein kind of lies some of our challenges as well. And so, for example, as we all know, we do have very limited resources, especially as it comes to funding of community colleges. Funding challenges can limit the physical and the human resources available to provide instruction for these programs, these high demand programs. The other thing is that many of these high demand programs, especially in healthcare, can be difficult, can be very costly, right? And so, we have, lots of equipment. We've got lots of supplies that are dispensable. That need to be used each term and each semester. So that can cause an increased fiscal demand on a college. Some of the other things that we face challenges with, as we all know, is recruiting qualified instructors. So, for example, in our nursing program, the Board of Nursing requires an MSN, so Master's of Science in Nursing Education. And so, but this is also, these individuals were competing with salaries from universities, from other community colleges, and especially from the field and industry. Like right now, there's so many sign-on bonuses for nurses to stay working in the field. So as a community college, that just kind of challenges us with being able to recruit qualified faculty. We've got, especially in these high skill, high demand programs, we really want to maintain a low ratio because we are dealing with healthcare, right? And so we want to make sure that the students have, some one-on-one instruction with one-on-one time with the instructor, so that we can really assess their skills to make sure that they're competent healthcare employees. So all of that, despite all of the significant challenges and the shortage in healthcare practitioners, entrance into nursing programs, and today I'm going to focus on nursing programs because that's kind of where we started this this inquisitive nature. But entrance in these programs is highly competitive. We have many students that want to have access to a limited number of seats in many of our healthcare programs, especially nursing. But, this is kind of warranted nursing programs to implement a selective admission process, which kind of counteracts the open door policy that we have seen with the community colleges. The selective admission process, one of the key advantages for that is that it facilitates the enrollment of students who are prepared to meet the academic challenges associated with education. And it reduces, hopefully, the likelihood for attrition and increases for the likelihood, hopefully, for those students to successfully pass their licensure exam. Many colleges implement a standardized test as a common metric used to select these students for the admission process, and I've just kind of listed a few here. At Davidson-Davie, we use the TEAS test, the test of essential academic skills. The majority of these tests are all fairly similar to one another, but they kind of format themselves along the same platform, and that's a multiple choice exam used to determine their ability to be successful in a nursing program. And so one of the things that we've done here is that we've started to notice that, previous to this year, in the fall 2021 entry cycle, Davidson-Davie, we entered students into the program based off of a student's performance in just a couple of metrics. Their score in anatomy and physiology, as well as their ability to take that standardized test. And one of the key things is that, these standardized tests have been known to interject implicit bias, especially in underrepresented populations. As you can see here, this was our previous entry process, and this was the ranking system that we used to admit or not admit students into that. The TEAS, the composite TEAS score that you see there, accounts for 10 out of the total 22 possible points, which is approximately 45% of their admission. So 45% of an individual's opportunity to get enrolled into a nursing program at Davidson-Davie was based off of the fact, could they sit down there and take a test? Selective admission processes, the literature is pretty abundant. Selective admission processes have the opportunity to interject this implicit bias, especially into those underserved populations. And it perpetuates educational inequalities associated with socioeconomic and racial ethnic factors. And so, we have to implement a selective admission process in some aspects, again, just due to the limited resources that we have. As I mentioned, I've been associated with our health sciences team for approximately since 2014. And so one thing that noted before last year's, we'd never really changed this entry process. And I can't say when the last time that it was changed. And so really wanted to investigate this and identify if really TEAS was the best way to select our students, kind of based off of the evidence that we've seen, and especially given the evidence of, the CDC's guidelines about creating a diverse workforce. So last spring, I decided to use some of my epidemiology skills and conduct just an internal study. And so in spring 2020, I conducted a preliminary study to explore the association between the selective admission tests, such as the TEAS, and the nursing course performance on the NCLEX RN success. So in other words, I wanted to look at whether or not the TEAS was a valid predictor of students' ability to successfully pass to NCLEX RN on the first attempt. So the study population I chose was our fall 27 nursing cohort, and those graduated in 2020. So the semester right before 2019. So the semester right before I conducted this study. And then I performed a series of logistic regression analyses to identify the association between the TEAS and the nursing course performance and how those influenced or predicted NCLEX RN success. So for each regression, my dependent variable was the nursing success. So either they passed or didn't pass on the first attempt. And then my independent variables for that were first the T score and then averages within the course themselves. So the nursing prefix courses. As you can see here, this is kind of what we call the descriptive statistics associated with the applicant pool and the students that were accepted. You can see, I think very similar to many of your colleges, that the female population was the largest population. And we saw a variety of ranges of ages as well as race and ethnicities. So after I conducted the regression analysis, two key findings, especially as they relate to the interest score, were found. So first, the TEAS was not significantly associated with predicting nursing success on the NCLEX RN. And so, as a matter of fact, neither of the subcategories were. And so, as I think we all would not be surprised, but course success was more significantly associated with the NCLEX RN success than the selective criteria that we had. As you can see here in this table, the TEAS composite score and the p-values, which are also known as significance values, none of those were remotely close to the threshold of 0.05. So in this cohort, in this population, we did not see any significant associations with the TEAS composite and nor the TEAS subcategory test and their ability to predict someone's ability to successfully pass the NCLEX. So that kind of supported our ideas about integrating a holistic admission process. Now, something that we've been thinking about for a while at Davidson-Davie, but now I think we just kind of had the foundation and the evidence to finally look at this in a more comprehensive manner so that we could implement some changes for the upcoming fall 21 entry cycle. So a holistic admission process is becoming more popular. If you research literature as access into healthcare programs, you'll see that a holistic admission process is supported by many entities such as American Association of Colleges of Nursing, American Medical Association. So all of those are starting to really look at the larger professions, dental profession, physical therapy. All of those are really starting to look at integrating a holistic admission process. So I thought, why not us, right? So one of the key facets of a holistic admission process is that it provides more than just assessment on someone's ability to sit down and take a test. I always joke to my faculty when I brought this to them, and I say, the first time I sat down and took the GRE in preparation for getting into graduate school, I walked out of that test crying. I called my mom and I said, I'm never going to amount to anything. I completely failed it and bombed it. But I took it again. I was able to get into Wake Forest. So, it's just not your ability to sit down. That day, it wasn't my day to sit down and take a test. And if I would have been assessed on that one-time ability, I never would be where I'm at now. So, one of the best things about this holistic admission process, it helps colleges consider a broad range of factors relating to an applicant's potential ability to be successful, including academic readiness and contribution to the incoming class. So it focuses more on an understanding of the whole student as opposed to ranking students by simply academic credentials. One of the things is that supports this is there was a large-scale national study conducted, and I've got the citation down here at the bottom. And it found that a holistic admission process increased the diversity of admitted students without influencing measures of academic quality, performance, or retention. And so those are all really key factors that many of our accrediting agencies want to see: is are you retaining, and are you putting out a certain level of students? So one of the metrics here that's used by many entities is this experiences, attributes, and metrics model. And so it kind of looks at a broad range of things. And one thing to point out is that in our experience, we found out and I've quoted the AAC in here, is that please be mindful that every school is different and unique, and you need to identify the factors and develop your own admissions process that align strategically with your mission, your goals, and your local community. And then so that's kind of what we did. We obviously don't take this and just integrate all of the EAM metric models into your admission process. But you identify those working with an interdisciplinary team that align strategically with your college and your community. Experiences includes factors such as, have they are from a disadvantaged population? Are they from a medically underserved area? Do they have experience with a diverse or underrepresented populations. Do they have prior healthcare experience? That was one of the things that we focused on. Do they have leadership experience? Are they a veteran? Some of the attributes that could be integrated into a holistic admission process include their ESL, English as a second language, commitment to social justice. Are they older than the age of 25? Gender, nationality, race, ethnicity. And then some of the metrics associated with it are some of the things that I think that we've normally associated with a limited entry process. So their GPA, their score on TEAS test, science GPA, etc. So we brought all of these factors together, and starting last summer, kind of convened a team, an interdisciplinary team, to start looking at how a holistic admission process would affect the diversity of our nursing applicants. And the major aspects of diversity that we at Davidson-Davie look at are gender, age group, race, ethnicity. So, I think it's critical here to integrate in evidence-based practices. And so, going to the literature and pulling out some recent, within the last 5 years, work that kind of describes how to build a holistic admission process, I think is critical to this. It's also important to involve your internal and external stakeholders. So this wasn't just the nursing department coming together and coming up with this. It's working with our clinical partners, with our admissions team, as well as our nursing department. And again, it needs to align with your institutional mission and vision. And at Davidson-Davie, we really strive to focus on equitable access, and we have a very strong diversity and inclusion initiative here at Davidson-Davie. So we came up with an idea of how to integrate both academic and qualitative measures into our selective admission process, right? And so academic measures include success of supportive courses, so the non-nursing prefix courses, and then qualitative measures that could include, do they have any active medical certifications? Are they military veterans? Or do they have any, previous degree completions? So we identified and came up with this new entry criteria. You can see it's quite different than the previous one. And what you'll see here is a rubric for assessment. And so at Davidson-Davie, our nursing program admissions, the ranking process occurs in our admissions office. So it's important that we have a really intimate relationship with our admissions office, and we can really collaborate and work together. So we came up with this entry criteria, this rubric for our nursing program, and we implemented for the fall 21 entry. So the students coming in this fall have been assessed via this rubric. And so you can see here that, if you recall from a previous slide, that the TEAS score accounted for 45% of the entry into the nursing program, and now we've reduced that to 19%. So it's a big reduction. So only 7 of our 37 points now account for your ability to sit down and take a test. We look at 2 major factors, the overall score and the science score. But we do give a lot more weight to the academic history of a student. So looking at their scores in their supportive courses, such as anatomy and physiology, their comms, communication courses, their humanities and social science courses. And we also look at whether or not they have a previous degree. And so, as many of you probably have students coming back to you that have, higher than an associate's degree. We've seen many come back to us for a bachelor's degree. And we also wanted to give points to award individuals for their continued commitment to Davidson-Davie. And so, again, if they had a CCP, a Career and College Promise Certificate from Davidson-Davie, we, gave them an additional point for that. And then we also wanted to provide points for a life experience. And so life experience can include active medical certifications. And we looked at not only the ones that Davidson-Davie offers, but some of our surrounding colleges. And we included credentials such as an EMT certificate, if they are credentialed as an EMT or a paramedic, surgical technologist, things like that. We also want to provide a point for someone who is a veteran or member of the armed services. And then lastly, if they've already completed that NA certificate and they are listed on the nurse aid registry, we provided them with a point. Kind of some of those factors help us in our mind, we thought that they would at least have experience in the medical field, and then, have a better understanding of kind of what working in medicine, working with patients would be like. And so we implemented this criteria for the fall of 21. And so applicants started coming in, last October. And then the application cycle ended at the end of January. And so we were then able to analyze our student population. And so, one of the first things I wanted to know was, so what? Did this integrate and create a more diverse applicant pool, as well as students who were admitted to the program? And so what I have here is just some comparison of our two programs. And so we will look at each factor, so gender, race, ethnicity, and age group. And we'll kind of compare the nursing, the ADN, which is associate degree nursing, as well as the practical nursing. And again, this is just a snapshot. So it's comparing last year to this year. So those who were accepted last year to those who were accepted this year. You can see there's a very small improvement in the male gender, so an increase in 1 percentage point for enrollment acceptance of males in the nursing program, and then a larger decrease in the acceptance of males in our practical nursing program, which seemed quite odd. And again, it's just a snapshot, so many things to say about that. But so we did see some change in nursing in the gender. Now let's look at age groups. And so one thing that we can see here is that in the ADN, the nursing group, we saw an increase in the percentage of students aged 18 to 24, and a decrease in the students aged 25 to 44. And that was kind of surprising to me. I kind of thought the opposite, right? We would see an increase in the 25 to 44. But nonetheless, that trend was also identified in the P&E program, our practical nurse program. So you can see here that we saw a larger jump and percentage increase of the accepted students that are aged 18 to 24. So that was kind of a surprising find. And now for race and ethnicity. So acceptance into our traditional nursing program, you could see that we had a good 10% increase in the acceptance of Black students and a 2% increase in the acceptance of Hispanic students, again, comparing this year to last year. We saw a slight decrease of those trends in the Black population in the practical nurse program, but we did see a good increase in the Hispanic program. So just kind of a preliminary study. For the ADN program, this holistic admission process, we saw some minor implications for the male gender. The age groups, we saw marked a 9% increase in acceptance of the 18 to 24-year-old students, and a decrease, 11% decrease in acceptance of the 25 to 44-year-old students. We did see a 10% increase in the acceptance of Black students and approximately 4% change in the acceptance of the Hispanic and white students. For the practical nursing program, we saw, again, that anomaly of a 15% change decrease in acceptance of males. But for the age groups, again, we saw similar trends to the ADN program. 21% change in the acceptance of 18 to 24-year-olds and a negative 14% change in the acceptance of the 25 to 44-year-olds. We did see a slight decrease in the acceptance of Black students comparing last year to this year, but we did see an increase in the acceptance of Hispanic students. So, so in conclusion, so one of the things, again, we wanted to look at is how this selective admission process impact the acceptance of students into our program. So it did seemingly negatively impact admissions of male students in the P&E program, but just very nominal impact to the admissions in the ADN program. I think surprisingly to me is that we saw it positively impacted the admissions of students age 18 to 24 across both programs. And again, I thought it would have been the opposite, since we were giving more focus to students who had completed some of the prerequisite courses and providing more points. Then I thought we would have seen an increase in the 25 to 44 population, but we did not. But But I think one of the factors that could influence that is the abundance of our career and college promise programs. And these students in high school are able to take those prerequisite or non-supportive courses, we call them, prior to getting into the nursing program. It did positively impact the admissions of Black students into our nursing program, and it also positively impacted the admissions of Hispanic students and students with other race and ethnicities into our practical nursing program. So one thing, just to be transparent, is that, this is just a snapshot. So the study design is cross-sectional in nature, right? And so basically that's just taking a snapshot at one time point and a snapshot at another time point. One of the things, in order to kind of fully assess this admission process, and we'll talk about on the next slide, is kind of a retrospective longitudinal approach. Again, another limitation to this is our limited sample size, right? And so in this last aspect, a statistical analysis was not conducted. It's just basically looking at a change in percentage points. We don't know if that change in percentage points was a statistically significant change, but nonetheless, we can identify that there is a change. And as in many factors, there are so many other variables that can influence these results that it's really hard to say, without further analysis, what exactly has caused the change in these percentage points that we see. And it's also important that these studies are all correlational, not causational, right? And so further types of analysis are going to be needed to just really, truly assess. And so some of the things that I continue to consider as we continue to go down this trail of a holistic admission process is that you really do need to have commitment from your internal and external stakeholders. I think that's going to be critical in not only building relationships, but also creating a diverse workforce, right? And admitting students from a diverse background. And so, as I mentioned earlier, trying to get commitment from your healthcare industries, especially your clinical partners, was a great tool and a resource for us. Your faculty, getting them on board. I know many times faculty can be, they don't want things to change, right? And this is what's worked for us. But I think the literature really proves that we need to take a step back and kind of look at things. And all healthcare fields, as many other technical fields, they continue to evolve. And so I think as educational entities, we also have to evolve. But you also need assistance from your admissions team and support from your academic leadership in order to make these things. And again, I can't emphasize enough that this has to be something that aligns with your college, your mission, and your vision. So other things to consider is that you need to absolutely, whatever we do, we have to prove that course grades, programmatic retention, and things such as NCLEX are in success continue to not be affected, right? There are so many other things that we can influence into this, such as culturally competent teaching practices. But measuring all of those among the effect of the psychomotor and the cognitive domains is going to be critical, especially in healthcare fields. One thing that I would like to continue to do is this kind of longitudinal retrospective study, right? I think that's going to be critical. Right now, we're just kind of seeing some things that kind of look neat and interesting and kind of raise our eyebrows. But in order to truly assess the effect of this, we have to really just perform that longitudinal retrospective study. And then something else to consider is how to capture your data accurately. As we all know, things can be very difficult to pull out a colleague. And unless you have your kind of own internal data collecting processes, or unless you really know how to manipulate colleague, just making sure that you capture those and capture them accurately, because the research or the data that you look at is really founded on the accuracy of that. The validity and the reliability of your analysis is really focused on the accuracy of your data. So I can't stress that enough. And then lastly, it's important to consider what are the evidence-based practices and trends in your field, especially as they relate to the particular discipline that you're looking at. And making sure that the decisions that you make are founded and grounded on these evidence-based practices, as well as things that can be contextualized for your local communities, as well as your institution. So thank you guys for attending today. And I hopefully have provided you guys with some information, at least on our journey on implementing a holistic admissions process for our selective admission programs. And we'll open it up to questions. All right, let's see. Let's see, the number of applications consistent between both years. Hiro, yes, they were. We had a little less than 100, around 100, but it wasn't that one year had overly large amount of applicants and the other year did not. So no, we did have an even number of applicants. All right, other questions? You know, and I did find that while it looked like a lot of work for our admissions team to do this ranking process, one of the great things is that the entire admissions team was fully on board, even though they had more things to look at, more things to rank, collect more documents, right? The entire admissions team was fully on board because I think they could really see that the potential that this had for reducing barriers to access to our healthcare programs. And you know, that is definitely something to consider. I think all admissions teams are very limited in their, you know, staff, physical staff. So, but I think if you can show them that this can truly positively impact access to education, our team was really on board and supportive. So, you know, I really can't speak highly enough of our admissions team and the hard work that they do. All right, so I'm just reading some of the questions. All right, so we had a question about the information being able to run the 2021 data point. So I would not have that data quite yet. And the reason for that is because the dependent variable that I used is NCLEX success rate, right? And so that means these students will have to matriculate through the program. But there are other types of dependent variables that I could choose, such as success in their first course. So these students will start that just went through this ranking process. Will start classes in the fall. And so Nursing 111 is our first class. So one thing I do plan to do is to then reassess this model and look at their ability to be successful in Nursing 111. I can even break it down. The cool part about the regression model is you can even break it down to look at individual tests and assessments. And you can, as long as those are numerical in nature, or bivariate in nature, you can put those into a regression model. So that's definitely one thing that I plan to do. And another good thing about this regression model in that analysis I did in spring 2021 or spring 2020 is that it controls for the extraneous factors of some of the other independent variables. So, you know, when I'm looking at T's success and its ability to predict success on NCLEX RN, that controls for other factors such as their scores and their nursing prefix courses, their age, you know, their some of the other factors that are included in the model. So it truly tries to isolate that out and just truly look at the effect so that it's not confounded or complicated by, you know, masked by some of the effect of other models. So that's kind of one of the reasons I really like using a regression model, whether it be linear or logistic. Okay, more questions. We got about 10 minutes left. I tried not to speak too fast, and I also tried not to overwhelm you with statistics, but I do think the statistical analysis is very powerful in that it allows us to make objective decisions, right? Yes or no. And one of the great things is that when we provide these to our ACE and our accrediting agency, they can really see what the true effects. And so we've got evidence to justify why we've reduced that T-score value. And hopefully soon we'll have evidence to why we should integrate others. And again, this is an evolving process. So There are many other factors to consider, but this for us was a stepping stone, a step one, because we really saw the importance of trying to create a holistic admission process and not just, can you take a test, yes or no. And so as we continue to consider these different aspects, continue this analysis, we will continue to evolve our selective admission criteria. All right. If you guys have additional questions, you're welcome to place them in the chat pod. I'm happy to answer them. And if you guys have any further questions, or if you want to talk about this in more detail, I'm always happy to talk stats. But you're welcome to contact me at Davidson-Davie. You can call me, you can email me, and I can share some more details about kind of our methodology to this and kind of our reasonings as well. I don't see any more questions coming in, so but I'll hang out here for the next 10 minutes or so in between sessions and answer questions as you guys have them. So if you, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday, and hope everyone's staying happy and healthy. Absolutely, Barb. I'll put it in the chat pod here. And one thing is, we've recently changed our name, Davidson-Davie, so all of our email addresses have changed. And then my direct line, I'll put that in there as well. So yeah, you guys are welcome to reach out to me. Kind of happy to talk with you about the methodology I used. All my statistical analysis was done in SPSS, so that's a very common platform in order to do statistical analysis. And again, I can't emphasize the importance of having kind of a whole big team approach, and our admissions team and our advising team are very critical in this, as well as our nursing faculty. And I think it's a topic that almost everyone at any college could get on board with, but it's just a matter of working through the uniqueness and, the psychological factor of this is just a change, and, not wanting it to influence your success rates, right? But I think there's an abundance of literature out there that really proves that this holistic admission process really, if done correctly, will not negatively influence your retention, your pass rates, things like that. So. And so for those of you at colleges who have other programs that are selective admission, such as maybe some of the other career technical programs, I think a similar platform, there's probably not as abundant of research done on that. But I think a similar framework can be established for that if you feel a need to, especially as it works to increasing underrepresented populations in those high demand fields. And something just to consider. You can look at translational studies, especially ones that were done in the healthcare field, since I think that's one of the most abundant fields that I've seen. But I think the platform and the idea and the framework could be equally translatable over to other career fields. Thank you, Barb. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you guys can, consider this again, especially in nursing. There's an abundance of literature about that. And that study that I cited earlier was a actually very large national study conducted, and with lots of respondents to that. So it's kind of been one of the industry standards regarding holistic admission. And the AACN, the American Association of Nursing Colleges, has a lot of information about creating a holistic admission process on their website. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and stop broadcasting here. I'll give everyone just about 5 more seconds to add some questions if you have them. Happy to talk about them. Again, happy to have some one-on-one conversations about this moving forward. Well, I hope everyone stays dry across North Carolina, and hopefully you won't have to swim anywhere today, but have a great day, everyone.